I am going against my better judgment and I'm going to put this video out. I'm not sure if I will leave it up or not, but I truly do want people to understand this Jubilee cycle that's predicated upon the Sabbath cycles. And I truly want to make sure that people not only understand it correctly, but if they're teaching it, that they're teaching it correctly. There are really two different ways to count, and I'm going to actually hide this down here. There are two different ways that people have adopted to count, and that is from the commencement of the going forth of the commandment, when ye shall come into the land, then the land shall declare a Sabbath, keep a Sabbath unto the Lord. 6 years thou shalt sow thy field and prune thy vineyard, gather in the fruits thereof. The 7th year is a year of rest, number 7 sevens, and in the 50th year hallow it and proclaim Jubilee. So there's two ways that people can count this. They can either make the 50th year the first year of the next 7 sevens, which is accurate. And I'm going to show you two ways in which we validate this is correct. Or they can make the 50th year a standalone year, and then they would start the count of the next 7 sevens in the following year. Essentially what you wind up doing is extending out the timeline by 70 years, since you're adding in an extra year for every 50th year. There are two ways in which we are to know definitively that this top way is correct. And this is the methodology that I adopted because I'm aware of these two things. Fundamentally, we understand this because of Daniel's 70 weeks of years. That prophecy uses Leviticus 25's weeks of years. There would be absolutely no way to make that prophecy work if you are using this count by here. There are 9 Jubilees that occur within the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince. You would be adding 9 years into that prophecy if you adopt this second way, and there would be no possible way that you could reconcile 69 periods of 7 between the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince if you were to add in those extra 9 years. It's impossible to do. But moreover, we were already introduced to the way in which we were intended to understand this was needing to be counted in Leviticus 23. This is Pentecost is a mini Jubilee cycle. I don't know if you guys are aware of that or not, or maybe you just haven't thought of it that way or not, but that is specifically what it is. And what they were commanded to do in Leviticus 23, let's go to verse 15. You shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath. So that would be a Sunday. This is going to be made specifically easier when we take this into the New Testament, because Jesus was the first fruits of the dead. He rose on first fruits, and the Spirit was sent on Pentecost 50 days later. That's essentially what we're looking at here, is the typology that carried over from the Feast of Weeks as given in Leviticus 23 to how it played out with Christ being the first fruits of the dead and sending the Spirit on Pentecost. And you will see that when you're dealing with calendars, you cannot just arbitrarily add time in. You can't just arbitrarily add days or years or double count days or years, which is essentially what you would be doing if you adopt this method. Because as we're going to see, this is a double count. This is a double count of essentially year 1. But anyway, this will become more clear as we continue going. So it says, you shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, so from Sunday, from the day you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, ye shall number 50 days, and ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord. So that's the Feast of Weeks. That's Pentecost. So when we take that back here, we say, okay, the morrow after the Sabbath. So that's a Sunday. That's Resurrection Sunday, folks. So you number 7 Sabbaths. And on the 50th is when the Spirit's going to be sent. It's on Pentecost. That's when they would bring that new wave offering before the Lord. So you say, okay, Jesus rose on the first day of the week, on Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So your first day of each week is Sunday. So yes, that is specifically what we're to understand here. which is what Pentecost was foreshadowing, was the 7 Sabbaths of years that would occur, the 7 Sabbaths of days, rather, that would occur between the resurrection of Jesus Christ as the first fruits of the barley, and to the first fruits, the wave offering of the wheat offering, which was Pentecost. So from the space between the Feast of First Fruits to the Feast of Weeks is a period of 50. Now, this is a calendar of weeks, of days. You wouldn't double count this 50th day, this 7th Sunday from First Fruits. So the next day would naturally be the second day in this new period of 7, which would be Monday. This is kind of the logic that seems to be missing from this conversation. And so maybe when we boil it down into very, very simple terms, and we say, okay, that's what Pentecost was. It was a mini Jubilee cycle, and we evidence this in actual calendar days between the resurrection of Christ and the sending of the Spirit. So if we're to adopt this thing that people are doing, which is weird, which is just adding in an arbitrary day. So you're going to say, Jesus rose on Sunday, on the Feast of First Fruits, and the Spirit was sent on Pentecost. Okay, so we're just going to start, we're going to double count that Sunday that Pentecost came? So it's both a Jubilee and the start of the next, it's just, that's essentially what you'd be doing. Calendars, whether they be of days, whether they be of years, are seamless. They are seamless transitions. You can't skip a day, pretend it didn't exist, and you can't double count a day and pretend you can't. I don't even know how to explain this. It seems like so basic and so common that nobody would actually think that you need to do that. And yet when we're looking at the Jubilee calendars, that's the logic that is escaping this conversation, is that people are trying to double count. And you can't do that. When you're talking about a calendar, you can't double count. Every day is a single day. You count it one time. And the 50th day is the day the Spirit was sent. It's also the first day of the next period of 7 sevens, because you don't have gaps in days and you don't double count days. I mean, this is honestly just like simple, basic fundamentals of how you structure a calendar, which is based on weeks, which is based on months. And so when we depart from this very basic fundamental logic that we understand of the way that weeks are structured, and we try to do it differently in the Bible, thinking that it's like super secret special knowledge and there was some weird way and some convoluted way of doing it there. No, guys. No. It's very simple. It was always intended to be very simple. You're always measuring in 7-day periods. From First Fruits to Pentecost was a full 7 sevens, and on the 50th day they offered a wave offering. That 50th day, that Sunday, was also the first day of that week, which was the first day of the next period of 7 sevens. So when you expand that to the land Sabbaths, it's the same dang thing. Same thing. You're not double counting anything. And then again, we validate this by going to Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy, which take Leviticus Sabbaths of years, Leviticus 25 Sabbaths of years. You can't just decide to double count stuff. That's not how it works. They're based on Sabbaths. The Sabbath is always a period of 7. It doesn't matter if it was a week that was built into God's creative week, which was given to Israel. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy in the law in Exodus 20. It doesn't matter if it's a period of 7 for the land or a period of 7,000 for world history. It doesn't matter. A Sabbath is a period of 7, an unbroken period of 7 that continues ad infinitum until you get to an end point. So from the time when they were commanded, when ye shall come into the land that I shall give you, then the land shall keep a Sabbath unto the Lord. You are supposed to understand periods of 7 unconditionally, unbrokenly until the end. A long time later, because you actually have 70 Jubilees, which are the 50th year of the periods of 7 sevens. So I do not understand why there is such a break in communication over this. And I do not understand where this break in communication occurred. But we're always intended to understand periods of 7 where the 50th was going to be the first of the next period of 7 sevens. Pentecost, the distance between Feast of Firstfruits and Feast of Weeks, was where that was established. That was then carried over into Leviticus 25's land of Sabbaths, which have that 50th year for Jubilee. And then relating to when Jesus came, died on the cross, and 50 days later sent the Spirit. You were never intended to understand anything other than this top way of counting. And Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy validates this, because the only way that it would work is if you use this top method of counting and you don't insert all these arbitrary Jubilee years, which would make it impossible to come to any kind of conclusion that would be accurate. So you have Pentecost, you have here, you have Daniel, and you have Jesus, and in his resurrection and sending the Spirit that tell you precisely how you are supposed to do this. So while I understand there are questions and there's confusion and there are a lot of people who have a lot of different thoughts about this, there is one right way to do this. There is one right answer. Our job should be to figure out what that right way is. And that is solely and exclusively what I seek to do here. So this is the last time. I said the other one was going to be the last time. And I thought, okay, well, maybe explaining with the first fruits and Pentecost analogy and talking about Jesus and the sending of the Spirit, his resurrection and the sending of the Spirit, maybe that will be the thing that clinches it for people and be like, oh, I get it now. Because, yeah, you wouldn't count Sunday twice. I mean, it's just, I don't know what other words to use to help people. But, yeah, there is one right answer. There's one right way. And my goal is to try to help people understand what that is. Not to be right, but to get it right so that people can stop being confused. Because I don't like confusion. I'm certainly not trying to create confusion. I am trying to clarify confusion. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Hopefully this has helped.